Welcome. Today we're going to be talking about how to be losing the belly without tracking calories, without even working out once. You don't even have to work out once. Not from home, not at the gym, and I'm going to give you the most simple ways without even having to dedicate extra time to start actually seeing your weight drop, depending on how much you're weighing, even up to 1 kilogram in a week, without doing any of that stuff. I'm going to lay out 3 very simple filters you can use to start seeing those changes. And I'm going to make this very, very simple for you. Now, once you start using these things, and week after week you drop in weight, once it then starts slowing down, let's say you've lost your first 5 kgs based on where you're at, then we can talk about being a little bit more specific, okay? So let me lay them out for you right now. In reality, first of all, what's responsible for us cutting the gut, losing the weight, being ready to date, becoming an 8 minimum out of 10, is the amount of energy that we are taking in versus the amount of energy that we are expending. This is basic caloric intake versus caloric expenditure. Based on the levels of these relative to each other will determine if we're losing weight, if we're losing fat, losing muscle. Now obviously you can go into nuances of how much is fat, how much is muscle, and all of this. We're gonna put all of that aside and we're gonna keep this really fucking simple, okay? Now, 3 variables that we can use. First of all, let's go back. You need to consume less calories, less energy from your food than you are burning in a day from moving and just the amount of energy you need for your organs to basically function to be able to lose weight. Less than that. Now, how do you know? Calculations and all of this. But if you're currently maintaining your weight, you're pretty much out of maintenance and you've got to start eating less. You've got to start consuming fewer calories. So how can we do that in an easy way that's not time consuming, not complicated, and doesn't require you to compromise much? You can just do it on the fly. The first out of the 3 ways that we can look at are simple food swaps, okay? Food swaps are essentially when you have a certain food that has a certain caloric intake and you're going to swap that and keep the portions the same and swap it to something that has less calories for the exact same amount of weight. So it feels the exact same in your stomach, but you're consuming less energy that's going to help you actually lose more weight, okay? To create that caloric deficit. I'll give you an example. 100 grams of cooked spaghetti, once it's cooked, right? The weight of that, 100 grams of that versus 100 grams of, let's say, potatoes. The caloric difference is the following. The spaghetti will be around 180-ish calories. The potatoes will be around 80 calories for the exact same weight. Different food, lower caloric content. Now, there's a certain seed of potato called I can't remember the exact seed of it, but the brand, one of the brands is called Spud Light Potatoes. It's got around 40 something calories for that same 100 grams. So it's even less. So imagine for a moment, you're having 200 grams of spaghetti, rough estimate, as an example. And you swap that out for Spud Light Potatoes, where that's around 40 calories per 100 grams. So you're having 200 grams of the potatoes, you're consuming now 80 calories of potatoes. Whereas if you had 200 grams of the spaghetti, you would have had 360 calories. That's just under 200 calories of a difference that you've consumed. Same portion, you feel the same, less caloric intake. And it's already enough to start moving your weight down. So when you can start utilizing this to start swapping things in and out, makes you not feel hungry like you're in a deficit and you're dieting and you're starving, but your intake is actually lowering. That's how you can already start losing weight. Literally just doing that. I do this with a lot of my clients. They actually feel full when they're dieting as they're losing weight. Beautiful thing. Second thing, portion control. This is one that most people go to in the beginning, or they do the food swap and they make it really dramatic. Like they cut everything out and go to salads, and then they put dressing on it that has a shit ton of calories without realizing. But the second thing is you can do portion control, okay? I recommend do this one on foods that contain a lot of fats, because fats is the macronutrient that has 9 calories per gram in comparison to protein and carbohydrate, which have 4 calories per gram for the exact same amount of weight. okay? Fats include nuts, yeah, avocados, oils, foods like this. And I'm not saying these things are, you know, unhealthy or anything. We're just talking strictly from a caloric point of view. So a lot of people are dousing, you know, a lot of full fat, full cream dairy products and mayonnaises and oils without realizing that a tablespoon of oil has a little bit over 100 calories in itself, and you don't even notice that. So you could literally just remove that, okay? But looking at foods like this that contain a lot of calories, simply just reducing some of those portions. That's the second thing you can manipulate, okay? And then the third thing is simple food elimination or meal elimination, okay? Assuming everything else is staying the same, you're not changing one thing and then adding more here and no. Everything we're assuming stays relatively similar as you're adding these variables in, just like a lab experiment. You keep the control the same and then the variables to come into play. It's the exact same thing. And that third component is just simply eliminating, removing things, okay? People go really aggressive with this, fasting and all of this, and they make the changes a bit too quick and then they rebound just as quick. So be realistic about it. Instead of just hardcore eliminating everything, incorporate some of the other variables that I've told you, swapping foods, reducing portions, and then you can factor this one in as well, which is actually removing things out. I like to start with number one first. It's the easiest way to get rid of that feeling of dieting and to create the illusion that you're eating the same, but you're actually not from an energy point of view. But when it comes to actually removing things, I recommend remove foods that are high in fats, a lot of snacks as well. People tend to consume a lot of calories with snacking, so that's a big thing, okay? And now you've basically got these three variables. You can either start with one, and then you can see how your weight moves that week. If it's not moving down the way that you want it, you can either do more of that same thing, or you can start introducing some of the other variables, okay? So you can either just do one at a time, or you can do a hybrid of both, less aggressive of each one, and let them come together to do a great job together, okay? Or you can be a bit more aggressive on one of them. Essentially, to know if you're on the right track or not, you want to be losing approximately 0.5 to 1% of your total body weight each and every single week. Meaning if you're 100 kilos, you want to lose anywhere from 500 grams to 1 kg of weight every single week on average. So you would measure your weight every single day, put the numbers together, divide it by 7, and then you get that average and you compare it to the average of the week before. You see the difference. Is it 500 grams to a kilo of a drop? If it's less, you haven't changed enough and you need to do something more with those variables. If it's more, then actually I will keep everything around the same, because if you don't change your variable, your weight loss will slowly slow down over time anyways. So it'll slowly fall back into the bracket. Now, if you're like doubling the rate, sometimes you can actually be changing too much too quick into where I'd say, hey, look, make some changes, but don't change it all too quick. We want to allow one variable at a time to really take full effect until we move on to the next. So we're not just jumping the gun. Full effect, next thing, full effect, next thing, full effect. So over the long run, you're actually losing more weight by allowing the result and the effect of each variable to come into play. But if I just strip away 20 variables at once, you lose weight, but it's almost too aggressive to the point where you start chipping away into muscle reserves. We don't want to do that. We want to lose fat, okay? And this is just a simple way to get started. I recommend food swaps. If you don't know what things to do, I've got a free course. And this is one of the things in the course that I teach, but I provide actual materials. You know, what foods you can start swapping in and using as alternatives. I provide guidelines and recommendations. And I actually go over everything in regards to how to really lose those initial kgs without doing all of the crazy bodybuilder fancy stuff. Starting with the nutrition, I talk about also the mindset and how you want to approach this in the long run, but also even the training side of things. Once you start having enough time and energy to start incorporating that, how to approach that. Yeah, and how many days, and depending on how many days you're going to do, how to structure those workouts. I put it all in there for free. So what I'll do, I'll link that in the description. Feel free to go on that page, enter your details, name, number, email, something like that, and you essentially get emailed that course. And you can go through it and literally start losing weight immediately. Now, if you do it, I want you to take before photos and then send the after photos once you've gone through it. I'd love to see the progress change that you make from implementing that course. So that way we can see how you're going to take it to the next level from there. Enjoy.